Publishers Lunch. I'd like to welcome you to the BuzzBooks Romance Editors Panel. I'm Erin Summers from Publishers Lunch. Thanks to all our editors and publishers for participating in BuzzBooks, as well as this panel. And everybody watching tonight should be sure to download the free BuzzBooks 2022 Romance Sampler with substantial excerpts from these 5 authors, as well as many others. We'll post the BuzzBooks download link in the chat throughout the panel. And now let's introduce our first panelists. First up, we have Jasmine Guillory, author of Drunk on Love, edited by Cindy Huang and published by Berkley on September 20th. Jasmine Guillory is the New York Times bestselling author of The Wedding Date, The Proposal, The Wedding Party, Royal Holiday, Party of Two, and While We Were Dating. Her work has appeared in Cosmopolitan, Real Simple, Shondaland.com, and Oh, the Oprah magazine. She lives in Oakland, California. Cindy Huang is Vice President, Editorial Director at Berkley. She joined Berkley in 1994 and has acquired and worked with a roster of best-selling authors, including Jane Ann Krentz, Amanda Quick, Laurel K. Hamilton, Sylvia Day, Christine Feehan, Helen Huang, Nalini Singh, and Karen White. Now I'm going to ask our first editor and author to start their microphones and cameras and come onto the digital stage.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Thanks so much for having us here. This is going to be really exciting for us.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Jasmine. So I am dying to tell everyone everything possible about Drunken Love, but we only have 10 minutes. So one of the things that I always think it's so exciting because it really is, it's really hard for authors is not just coming up with new ideas, but starting off a new series, because I don't think a lot of what a lot of readers know is that Drunk on Love is actually the beginning of a new series. Like your first book, The Wedding Date, actually was the start of a new series, but it ended officially with While You Were Dating. So how did you come up with a new series idea?
At first I had no idea what I was going to do. Like I sort of knew that While We Were Dating was going to be the end of that group of people. And I remember at one point I was having a conversation with my agent and I was saying, I have no idea what's coming next. And then like later that night, I was like, what if? And so I think that's sort of how it happens, is like little ideas that kind of build. I also knew that, for my first 6 books, they were all set either in the Bay Area or the LA area. And I felt like I didn't want to go back to either of those locations. And so as soon as I had the idea of having a book set in wine country, it just sort of, everything kind of sparked from there. So it was really the location that I thought of first. And then I got so many ideas sort of coming from there.
Well, speaking of wine country, a lot of the action of this book takes place at a winery in Napa, and which I have visited Napa, but not necessarily the wineries, because I actually don't drink.
I know.
So for me, yeah, this was it was a brand new world in a lot of ways. Thank you for educating me about wines and our discussions about what actually, is it supposed to taste sour? But one of the things I know I was asking you, because it didn't occur to me, that there is its own wines obviously have their own vocabulary and understanding, but wineries too, and the social aspect and business aspects, it's a little different. And I had no idea like a wine party was not just like a block party that people just come for free. And oh my gosh, this is so generous, all this wine and free food. Did not know you actually had to pay for that. So thank you for educating me. So well,
it was very helpful because I know that you don't drink and that you don't know much about wine and the whole culture, which was also actually very helpful for me because like I live in the Bay Area. I'm like an hour away from wine country. I'm often up there. And so there's a lot of stuff that I just think is common knowledge that isn't, which was great for me for like all the questions that you had for me. I was like, okay, great. I need to explain these things more to the reader who, does not live around here, who may not have done any of this. So that was really helpful, like editorial notes of things that I needed to explain more of.
It was, I have to admit, I had to go over a little bit of embarrassment when I
No, that was what I needed.
yeah, I was starting way low, but you made it easy. It actually, thanks to you, I want to order rosé more, especially in the summers and frosés. So, and I'm working my way.
Oh,
The
well.
sweeter the better. Anyone listening, if
Exactly.
you want to send me anything, it's sweet. So, but it was great. I really loved reading about Margot and Luke. And it was so interesting because there's an age difference between them, but it's reversed. It's typically, obviously, a lot of times heroes are a little older than the heroine or the same age, but Margot is older than Luke. It's not by a huge amount, but it's just enough that it affects at least Margot's, sense. And generationally, I would say Margot is millennial, where Luke is actually, I would say, Gen Z-ish,
On the cusp.
on the cusp, yeah. So did you like playing with that in terms of all its aspects?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things that I sort of played with in that way, right? Because a part of the idea for the beginning of the book, for me, was sort of like the beginning of Grey's Anatomy, where they had a fling at the beginning, and then she found out that he was her boss. And so I thought it was kind of fun to swap that, and it was fun to kind of swap the who was older, and because those dynamics are different when the gender is different. And I also kind of wanted to see what impact would that have on Margot, what impact would that have on Luke, and how would they relate to one another differently because of all of those things. So that was a lot of fun for me to kind of think about and play with, and kind of all of the secrets that they had to keep and the ways they had to pretend, both to the rest of the world, to each other, and to themselves.
Well, I don't think it's a spoiler to mention and alluded to how they met. It was with what they both thought was going to be a one-night stand, though they both had wanted more. But it became the most awkward one-night stand ever, when the next day they realized they were boss and employee, which obviously comes with a lot of really different power dynamics. So I know you were playing a lot with that too. And also, female in positions of power too. So a lot of times it feels women have to be extra careful about that. So you dealt with all these issues really well, and it was a big part of their relationship, but also building this incredible sexual tension between them, which is often hard to do when you begin sort of them right away getting together, but then you have to hit pause while they work out all these other issues. This uncomplicated sex is not quite so uncomplicated anymore. Yeah. So I love that aspect.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. I mean, I think also everybody has different relationship dynamics throughout the book. And so I really enjoyed as in, I think all of my books, there's a lot of family dynamics going on kind of with both of them. And so they both had to kind of figure out how to relate to their family members and to each other, and to pretend to the world, oh, she's just my boss, nothing is going on. And so that I had fun with that.
And I really think readers will enjoy reading that for sure. One of the things, obviously, everyone, all the writers in this group too, we're all still in a pandemic. You were writing this in the midst of the pandemic, so a lot of there's a lot of scenes involving big social events, dealing with food and alcohol, obviously, and food has always been a big part of your books, and a big way for friends and family to come together. And it's a big social setting. So did it feel different writing about those kinds of scenes that were so curtailed for the last 2 years?
It actually felt really comforting for me to write about things like that, because that is kind of the stuff that I missed the most during the pandemic, is being able to gather with friends and family, being able to sort of go to parties, go out to dinner, things like that. And so it was fun to be able to kind of live through it vicariously through my characters, and to put in into the book, like all of the stuff that I love, and that I missed. And so I, and as some of that has come back and has started to come back, it's been good to experience it again. But it was really nice for me to be able to sort of live that as I was writing.
Well, I think we have just a little more time left. So, I'm going to talk about the title because we had a hard time.
We had a hard
coming
time
up
with the title.
Very, very hard time. So obviously, our original choice was Drunk in Love.
Yes, but okay, I'm going to back you up, because before we even came up with that, we had a hard time. Like, I will say my titles for my books have always either been, I came up with the title immediately, and that's how the title has stayed. That's how it was for the first 3. Or I never had a title, and like it had to be a big brainstorming event. And this one I think was the biggest brainstorming event we had. Like
literally,
it was like 6 weeks of sending emails back and forth with a bunch of titles, and then sometimes we'd be like, well, maybe that one. And so Drunk in Love was the first, well, maybe that one idea that we had, and then we were like, well, I don't know. And then finally, like, what was it, 5 of us like all sat in a room together and brainstormed a whole bunch of titles, and we were like, wait, Drunk on Love, that's better, we like that. But that it was that definitely like took a village.
It was great because we were like, we're not leaving this room until we have a title. We have a title. And then we're like, do we like this just because we want to leave the room?
Right.
But it stuck and informed the cover, which I think all of you have seen. It's really just striking a new look, but connected to your previous book, but just something fun, fresh, and I think really appealing, and really speaks to the book reading experience.
I love the cover so much. I mean, it felt, as soon as I saw it, it like felt like the book to me. And it's just like so fun and vibrant, and I was so excited.
I am too. So I think we're out of time. So back to you, Erin.
Thank you so much, Cindy and Jasmine. That is so great and so exciting for your readers, that it's the beginning of a brand new trilogy. Next up, we have Kennedy Ryan, author of Before I Let Go, edited by Leah Holton-Schmidt and published by Forever on November 13th. A Rita and Audi Award winner, USA Today best-selling author Kennedy Ryan writes for women from all walks of life, empowering them and placing them firmly at the center of each story and in charge of their own destinies. Kennedy has been featured in Chicken Soup for the Soul, USA Today, Entertainment Weekly, Glamour, Cosmopolitan, Time, O Magazine, and many others. Leah Holton-Schmidt is the associate publisher of the Forever imprint at Grand Central Publishing. She works with a number of New York Times best-selling authors in romance and women's fiction. Kennedy and Leah, please come to the stage.
Thanks, Erin. Hey, Kennedy.
Hi, how are you, Leah?
Good. We're so glad you're here tonight, and hello to everyone visiting. Thanks for being here. I have to say, when I first read your proposal for Before I Let Go, I got so many vibes of the This Is Us TV show. There was all of these like real family dynamics with the parents and their teen or preteen, some like sizzling romance. And I had a feeling it was definitely going to require tissues.
A few, yeah, a few.
I know we talked a lot about, is this book romance? Is it women's fiction? And I think we ultimately just hedged our bets and kept calling it romantic women's fiction. We'll just catch everybody on board. But can you tell us a little bit about why this was such an important story for you to tell?
As we kind of unpack this book, one of the things that I really love is that this is a heroine. I've written a lot of heroines who are like very, very strong. I have written a book called The Kingmaker, where the heroine is like a political consultant and she puts, people in power. And I've written heroines who are like sports agents in these male-dominated fields, and they're so capable and so competent and they have it all together. And I really wanted to write a heroine who completely falls apart, and looking at how she recovers. You know, that was really interesting to me. And that's what happens with Jasmine in this story. We come in while she's healing. You know, we come in when she's recapturing joy in her life, but there are a lot of things that fell apart while she was recovering from a lot of personal loss, from grief, and working her way through just the most difficult time of her life. It's set in Atlanta, which is something that I always love to write because I'm an ATLian. You know, I lived in Atlanta for over 20 years. I love, you know, I'm a Southerner. You know, I'm from North Carolina, but I'm a Georgia girl since I lived in Atlanta. So there's lots of food. They own a restaurant together. So you got the food vibes. They co-parent. They own this business together. And I was really interested in seeing, and I wanted to write some pining, you know, because it's one thing, it's kind of like combining Second Chance and Slow Burn. Because it's one thing when you don't know what it's like with someone else, but what is it when there's this line that Josiah says, and I'm going to misquote myself, but he says, like, what are the odds that you ever find something, a love like this in a lifetime? And imagine feeling that way and then losing that person, but that person's still in your life, you know, as your business partner, as the person you're raising your children with, and you're that close to them, but you can never have them again. And so that's a different kind of simmer, you know, it's a different kind of burn, and it creates this tension that's there in the story that I was really, really excited to explore. So it's kind of those two things, giving a woman space to fall apart and recover and heal, and then the pining and what that recovering that marriage looks like.
Yeah, and just to set this up, you give us this amazing, I think it's like 10, 12 pages or something of this like epic love story in the prologue. And we were like all in. And then chapter 1, we find out that Jasmine and Josiah, meant to be together forever, are divorced. And so you're telling that story of sort of what happened and what's next. And, you know, and mental health becomes a big part of the book as well, and how that plays into the story and how it plays into the dissolution of their relationship. And then ultimately, well, I don't want to give any spoilers, but it is a romance. Can you just tell a little bit about, you talked how different it was to write that sexual tension from a couple who had already gotten their HEA, they thought, and then come to find out not, and the road that they had to take to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we read a romance, we think these people are together forever, they're soulmates, and that's the setup. You know, you talked about the prologue. It's what we expect. You know, these people who are in love, they find each other, they're, you know, devoted to each other, they marry. That's it. That's the HEA. And when you get into chapter 1, it's like, okay, what happened? Because now they're divorced. And I was really interested in unpacking their journey and just how they find their way back to each other. You talked about the mental health in this book and how that plays in. I talked a little bit in the beginning about how I wanted to give Jasmine, that's the heroine, space to kind of fall apart. That's something that we as women sometimes are not allowed. And I will get specific since I'm a Black woman and say often we as Black women, it's the strong Black woman, you know, that ethos of the strong Black woman, that mythical character who has the cape and somehow like takes on everybody's burdens inside our community and outside of our community. And you rarely see where there's a woman of color who is allowed to completely fall apart. I've been on TikTok a lot lately, and the TikTok girlies have what they call their soft era. And I started digging into that because I am what I call myself type A minus. You know, I am incredibly driven. I'm incredibly ambitious. I'm incredibly achievement oriented. And it's hard to kind of dial that back. And Jasmine is someone who is like that, but then completely falls apart. And in the soft era, I think some of that emerged from, we saw Naomi Osaka withdraw from the French Open. We saw Simone Biles, you know, choosing her mental health over gold. We saw Miss USA, you know, very publicly dying by suicide. And all of a sudden, women of color were at the center of a discussion about about mental health. And I was very interested in unpacking Jasmine's journey from grief and depression into healing and joy and finding the love of her life again and all that that entails. And that's what we get, it's those are the vibes, it's spicy, it's piney, but it does, it has these themes of kind of recovering the things that she lost. And I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm a little biased, but it is a powerful, powerful read, and just immensely emotionally gripping in my mind, to see not only Jasmine go through her journey, but Josiah as well, and
Yes.
model for his son and be there for his family, and he has to kind of come about things in a different way as well.
I'm really glad you mentioned Josiah. I don't know how much time we have, but I just want to touch really quickly on the fact that this really hones in on men and mental health and the stigma around Black men, especially taking care of themselves. So that's something that we definitely get into in this story, and I'm excited about exploring that.
Well, one of the other things I love, there are certainly some heavy topics in here, but ultimately there's a lot of joy.
Yes.
Too. Part of Jasmine's healing and kind of getting back to herself after some of these family tragedies is these girlfriends that she makes in Soledad and Henrik and this kind of crew that she has, that they have some of the most hilarious, no holds barred conversation. I wish I could be friends with these women. And I'd love to hear sort of your take on how, bringing them together came about.
Well, I think when you are in depression or when you're down, sometimes what happens is we isolate ourselves. We isolate ourselves from our friend and from community. And a big part of how Jasmine heals and rediscovers joy is by connecting with these amazing women. This friend group was really interesting because they're all in very different places in their lives. Often, I think when we talk about feminism, we see the stay-at-home mom, pitted against the mom who works outside of the home. It was very important for me in this friend group that we have a woman who, she's incredibly intelligent, incredibly capable. Her name is Soledad, and she chooses to pour all of her energy, all of her intelligence into her children and into her home. And then we have Hendrix, the other friend, who's like an agent, and she's, she manages housewives, or I call them hot wives, and, celebrities. And she is like a rocket, in her career and is not interested in marriage or children. And then we have Jasmine, of course, who has 2 children and, very centered with her family, but owns a business. These 3 women are in very different places in their lives as far as career, but they find a kinship, and it's a place that's safe. I think that's what we're all looking for, is a place where it's safe for us to be ourselves, and for when we need joy, to find people we can access joy with uninhibited, but also a safe place to fall apart. And I think that is what this friend group is for Jasmine. It's a place for her as she's recovering her joy to be uninhibited and to be the funnest version of herself, rediscovering that fun version of Jasmine after, going through so much, but then also on the days when she needs to fall apart, knowing that they're a safe place for her to land. So I'm really excited for people to meet these 3 women. They're powerful, they're vulnerable, which is very important to me, because I think so often we lean into the power and we don't give women space to be vulnerable. And I wanted both of those things to happen in this book.
It's a wonderful balance. And I'm obviously very excited for Before I Let Go to come out in November, but I'm also super excited that we'll get these other women's stories as we go through the series. I think we have time for just like one more little thing. If you want to give us 3 words, let's just say, I know, I should have prepped you. To sum us up here.
I'm going to lead with spicy. And the reason I'm going to lead with spicy is because I think so often when people think about my books, they're like, I'm going to cry, like people are often like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so emotional. And there are certainly, I think you can already tell aspects of that are true, but there is like a slow boil, and, imagine the tension of knowing how good it is with someone and how the feeling that you may never find anyone else it would be that good with. and then you are in that person's life, but you can never access them, that, and still being attracted to them, that is the like proximity, the forced proximity, the spark. But then also having been in a devoted relationship with that person, knowing their secrets, like it creates its own special kind of like boil, you know? And so I'm gonna say spicy and like a slow boil, simmer to boil.
That's 3 words. We got it.
Words. Okay.
Spicy,
And
simmer,
healing,
boil.
healing and joy. I'm cheating. Healing and joy.
Fabulous. Thanks a lot, Kennedy. We'll turn it back over to you, Erin.
Thanks so much, Kennedy and Leah. And everyone watching can sample Kennedy's wonderful book and all of tonight's titles now in our BuzzBook sampler. And you can find the link to that in our chat. Next up, we have Amber D. Samuel, author of The Many Dates of Indigo, edited by Deanna McFadden and published by W Wattpad Books on December 6th. Amber Samuel is a writer, a Wattpad star, and an elementary school teacher. She lives and works in Texas. The Many Dates of Indigo is her first novel. Deanna McFadden is the executive publishing director at Wattpad Webtoon Studios. She started her career in publishing as a digital marketer with Random House of Canada, then worked in various departments at HarperCollins Canada and rose to senior director digital product. In her role as associate publisher with Joe Books, she managed a licensed publishing program in partnership with Disney, Marvel, Lucasfilms, and NBC Universal. She is the author of over 20 abridged classics for kids. Now let's welcome Amber and Deanna to the stage.
Amber, there you are. Hello. It's so nice to see you. We're both exceptionally pleased to be here, and I'm so excited to be here to talk with debut author Amber D. Samuel about The Many Dates of Indigo. This is a heartfelt romance about a young singleton named Indigo on the cusp of turning 30 and coming face to face with the fact that she's put off dating, put off finding the quote unquote the one in favor of finding success in other areas of her life, namely her uber successful shoe store. But now she's feeling that twinge, that pressure not to be single anymore, and trying to balance dating while reconciling her past and her history with her BFF Tate. So Amber, I'm going to start by saying that so many romances end with the wedding as the epilogue, but your lovely novel begins with Indigo about to get married. And I want to know, why was it important for you as the writer to show the reader your plan for her happily ever after right from the beginning?
Well, I was tasked with putting 2 books into one. So there was The Many Dates of Indigo and The Entangled Engagement of Indigo. And so I was trying to figure out how I would do that in the editing process. And so I used my mystery thriller tricks that I learned. And I decided to just like show the reader what is the end goal and kind of like have them participate in a type of the Bachelorette kind of contest to figure out what guy between Nathan, Diego, and Tate will Indigo pick, and like accessing their dates and their conversations and figuring out which guy would they think is best for Indigo, would fit with Indigo's busy lifestyle as a luxury boutique owner, as Indigo is very in what's it called, the word is very in with her family, like family game nights, family movie nights. They have to like her family and not be afraid to talk with her family and voice their opinion. And so the reader will be searching for and trying to figure out which guy is best for her.
I love that. I love that so much. And I too, I mean, from the beginning, I knew who I wanted to Indigo to end up with, but I'm hoping the journey is as exciting for the writer as it, or the readers as it was for us when we were editing the book. I'm so pleased that you brought up some of the sort of big, amazing, wide cast of characters that are in the novel, especially Indigo's family. And I feel like her balancing that pressure from her family and sort of what she wants out of life and who she is such a main driving force of her emotional journey. I just love this line from the beginning of the book where Aunt Maureen whispers to her cluster of church friends, Indigo just loves the single life. I think that whole thing characterizes Indigo's family so well, and how, you know, you as the writer balance her family's impression of her and who she is herself. And I wanted to sort of know if you could explore or just chat a little bit about where you were writing from with that pressure from her family in terms of their preoccupation with her life and her love life, and sort of the idea of her needing to dot her I's and cross her T's sort of idea.
I mean, I also have personal experience with this, being a 30-something millennial that is about being independent, about her career, and focusing on building a foundation and finding ways to make sure that I can be financially fit and responsible. So I knew how to fuel that in with Indigo. And I think Indigo balances it very well. She is focused on her career, and she wants to build a successful, lucrative boutique, which for reasons that will be expressed in the book, she's trying to prove herself to certain family members that she can be a boss and that she made the correct decision to own a company and step out and work for herself instead of going the educational route. So she's trying to prove herself on that front. And then at the baby shower, which is the first chapter of the book, she kind of realizes that, hey, okay, I want these things like my sister has, and now it's time to actually start working and focusing on that aspect of life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that leads so nicely into my next question, which I was going to ask about Indigo's strengths and weaknesses, but I feel like you've already talked about them, in that, she's a strong, independent woman, and she wanted to stand on her own 2 feet. She wanted to solve the professional side of her life before she solves the personal side of her life. So I'm going to ask, what do you feel is the biggest life lesson you'd want readers to take from Indigo's journey from singleton to finding a loving partner? Like, what were her biggest mistakes? And especially as she goes through the very 3 different male protagonists, why was it important to show more than one option, more than one love interest throughout the narrative?
Well, it was important to show more than one suitor, because it's the mini dates, and dates are supposed to be fun, and you're not just dating one person, because like I can't remember who said it in the book, I think it was her brother, that it's kind of like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and you have to date more than one person to see what person is best for you, because you don't know. So I thought that was fun to get more than one suitor, and to see which person she matches with better, which type of energy they have, and how they fit in her life. And I thought it was best for 3 people.
Yeah, they're all so different too. Can you write them all so well? Like, they all have their own like big boisterous personalities on the page as well. We've got just a few minutes left, so I've got one more question that I think is my favorite element of the novel, among my many favorite elements of the novel. But Indigo's best friend Tate is a writer himself, going through pretty serious writer's block, as well as some pressure, external pressure, to change his career. How did that feel for you as a writer working through your own first novel, to have a character perhaps a touch, quote unquote, close to home?
But for me, writing Tate was kind of therapeutic. I was a mystery writer, like I said, and now I was doing romance, and it was a new type of genre for me. I was kind of like experimenting and seeing what would work, what didn't work. I also brought some elements of thriller with the dates, kind of like build up the tension and the pressure for the reader to figure out and pinpoint the clues to who they think she would pick with conversations. Also, I thought it would be a fun way to address Tate's feelings for Indigo. He decides that maybe because he can't actually voice how he feels about her and how he wants them to be, that he could like write it out, and maybe that will help him figure out what he wants and how he wants to execute those things and how he feels about her dating again. Even though he's her best friend, he has certain feelings, and he feels some type of way about her dating.
And he's got to figure that out and then express it, and in a ways that, yeah, I think the enemy, or I mean, friends to lovers trope is one of my favorites to see on the page. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before. We've got just 2 minutes left. So I want to ask you about your inspiration for the book, which I know we are on the same page. When we see Love and Basketball, which is one of my favorite movies, I hope it's one of your favorite movies too, in this novel. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about where your inspiration was. And I know it was a totally different thing for you to write on the Wattpad platform, excuse me, up until now, and sort of how to kind of explore your inspirations in, you know, picking up and writing romance when you were writing something so different beforehand.
Well, the inspiration came from, I was watching Being Mary Jane, and during the first episode, Mary Jane, well, the first episode was a movie that was on BET, and Mary Jane went to a shoe store and she was trying on shoes, and it was Gabrielle Union played Being Mary Jane, and the shoe store owner, I think her name is Tika Sumter. I think that's who it is. She was selling shoes, and I was like, I wonder what her life is like. I mean, she was fashionable, she was beautiful, this beautiful Black woman, and I was like, I would love to dive into her life. What is her life like? She's running this shoe store, and I just started creating, like, okay, so this is what her family's like. This is what, this is how she dresses. And I kind of went to Pinterest to build up her closet, what type of shoes she has, what type of car she has. And then Indigo was created.
And we've got, I think we're just about out of time, so we'll fling it back in 1 second, but I just wanted to say there's such a strong emotional current through the novel too, where it's not, I mean, it's fun and lovely in terms of her dating everyone, but there's a strong, really emotional story, especially between she and Tate and what they go through. And why was that important to you, just to like focus on Indigo's emotions throughout the novel?
It was important for me to address her emotions, because I kind of wanted to dissect that strong Black woman idea that she has to carry the burdens of the world and take care of everyone. And I kind of wanted to show that she's vulnerable. She has emotions. She expresses those emotions. She doesn't just keep them packed in and push them down. She cries. She gets mad. She's not an angry Black woman, but she gets mad because she's human, and humans get mad, and humans get frustrated. And I wanted to show a full-fledged character because she's a human being, just like Black women are humans. So I think
you've done an amazing, marvelous, wonderful job on Indigo. She is so human, and so are you. And I'm so pleased that you're here today. And I'm going to throw it back because we're out of time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks so much, Amber and Deanna, for that great presentation. The book sounds like a lot of fun. Next up, we have Kate Clayborn, author of Georgie All Along, edited by Shannon Plackus and published by Kensington on January 31st, 2023. Kate Clayborn is the two-time Rita Award nominee author of highly acclaimed romantic comedies, including Love Lettering, Love at First, and The Chance of a Lifetime series. Her novels have been named Best Romances of the Year by O, the Oprah Magazine, Entertainment Weekly, The Washington Post, BuzzFeed, Romper, and more. Shannon Plackus is an assistant editor at Kensington Publishing, where she has worked since 2016. She has worked with a wide variety of genres, including mysteries, thrillers, nonfiction, romance, and more recently with her own titles, women's fiction. Before publishing, she studied English and creative writing at SUNY New Paltz. Here are Kate and Shannon. Please come to the stage.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hi, Kate.
Hey, Shannon, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to be here. Hi, everybody who's out there watching.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about Georgie all along and for everyone to learn more about it. So I guess what I wanted to start with is this book centers on a friend fic, which for people who might not be in the nerdy teenage girl subculture that I'm pretty sure we both occupy, they might not know what that is. So I was wondering if you could just like explain a bit about what that is and also why you chose to write about that specifically.
Sure. So the premise of this book, the heroine finds a friend fic from her past, and I myself had one of these when I was in high school. And what it was like a notebook that I shared with two of my friends. And we basically passed it back and forth and wrote kind of our dreams for ourselves and for each other in this notebook. In my case, I really wrote a lot about Keanu Reeves. I've destroyed that friend fic. It doesn't exist anymore. But anyways, this was kind of the concept that got my brain thinking here about like what was I doing when I was writing a friend fic like that? What did it mean to me? And then I just sort of started exploring the idea of the dreams we have for ourselves when we're young and kind of what the world does to those dreams over time and why. And so I'm always interested in sort of thematic ideas when I set out to write a romance. And so for me, it was like, how does our past inform our present and the goals we set in our past and the goals we set in our present too?
Yeah, I think also the book really like jumping off of that really plays with this idea too, though, that like who we are as teenagers and who we are as adults are so different. Like, you know, you read your old friend fic and you go like, oh, I didn't complete all of these things. Like, did I let myself down? But so often you've changed so much that you don't even relate to the person who made those goals anymore. And I think like something I really love about Georgie all along is the themes of second chances and reinvention, and how also, even if you have personally changed, people still hold you to this image they have of you from when they first met you, from when you were growing up and you were young. And I want to know like what inspired you to write about that, because I think both the main characters, Georgie and Levi, are struggling with breaking out of this concept people from their hometown have of them.
Yeah, so Georgie all along is a small town romance. It's Georgie, the main character, goes back to her hometown, and I don't think this is unique to small towns. I think lots of people feel that when they go back to the place they're from, they're always kind of contending with their reputation in that place, how they were seen either in school or in their friend group or whatever. And I guess one thing that really interested me about that was, I think you're right. We do change a lot from the time when we're young to when we grow up. But I also think like a huge part of growing up and becoming mature is learning how to love all the versions of ourselves, even the ones from the past, even when we've done things we're embarrassed about, or even when we've not, Georgie was never a stellar student. None of her teachers thought she was very well behaved. But, throughout the book, I think what Georgie comes to realize is that like, she was good as a kid too, right? She's always been good. She's always been, trying to make her way in life and being kind and warm and open. And so I think over the course of the book, we see that. And I think Levi, her love interest in the book, has to learn that as well. He has to learn to be kind to the person he was in the past. Certainly his family didn't offer him that kindness. And so he sort of has to teach it to himself, and he has to learn it from Georgie as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I really also, speaking of Levi's family, something that always just like sticks out to me with your books in particular is how lived in your characters feel. And the family dynamics, the friendship characters, like everyone is really like it feels like I really understand and know these people and their lives, and I'm simply just like slipping in to observe it for a little while. Especially with like Belle and Georgie's friendship in particular feels so real and is one of like my favorite aspects of the book. So I was wondering if you could just talk about like your process and how you like get that sort of lived in quality.
Yeah, I think, I feel sort of the same when I'm finished with a book. I feel the same as I want my readers to feel, which is that I feel like these are very real people to me. I have lived with them the entire time I've been drafting the book, and they even become more real to me when it's all finished. What I would say is that a huge part of my process is doing work on characterization that may or may not ever actually make it into the book. So I think a lot about aspects of the characters that are kind of important to me and my friends and my family. Like, hey, what's the food that I reach for when I've had a really bad day at work? Or what's my favorite, what's the swear word I say when I stub my toe on the edge of a dresser? It's like really small details like that are part of what I think about when I am creating a character. And again, not much of it ends up in the book, but it's how the characters are kind of made flesh to me. It's how I'm able to choose the words that they speak. It's how I'm able to choose their gestures. It's how I'm able to choose what they fall in love about with their love interest. So I guess what I would say is that maybe some people would say I waste a lot of time thinking about details I'm never going to include in the book. And then I guess what I would say about, you mentioned in this book, there's a very strong element of friendship between Georgie and her best friend, Belle, who she originally wrote the friend fic with. I guess for me, friendship is so incredibly defining to my life. My friendships in life are sort of like, they're just gorgeous and wonderful and challenging and ever-changing. I think friendship is one of the most beautiful things about the human experience. And I also think that friendship makes romantic love a lot richer. And so it's really important to me that friendship feels real and important in the books that I write.
Yeah, I definitely think even right from the beginning with your first book with us, it's always just been very apparent and a quality I love about your books.
Oh, thanks.
So this is your sixth romance with us, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question is that like after doing this many books, like how do you like struggle when it comes to romance? Like, do you like, what's the trickiest part of writing it? Like when you're just like, okay, for the sixth time, I got to make people fall in love again.
Well, I think I'm on record as saying that like, I find almost every part about writing tricky. Like I often think that various parts of writing it are challenging, but for me, I guess what I would say is that, romance has been very important to me in my life. It has gotten me through many difficult times. It has comforted me. It has also been kind of a companion through periods of joy and happiness in my life, right? Like, so sort of like any mood I'm in the mood for a romance. It's just a different, it might just be a different kind of romance. So I think the thing that remains most challenging to me and important to me is that I want the books to do a service to the genre that I love so much and that I think is so important to the world and to kind of humanity. So I feel a lot of responsibility writing romance, and I take my work seriously and I take my colleagues' work seriously, kind of everybody on this call. And so I think that's the biggest challenge to me. And that's the thing that keeps me coming back, right? Is to write the kind of books that also mean a lot to me.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question. So I guess like, this is just like a fun little detail, but our main character, Georgie, is originally a personal assistant for a Hollywood personality person.
Mhm.
And I just thought that was a really fun detail of a choice for job. Like, how did that come to you?
So yeah, she is at the beginning of the book, she has just kind of been laid off from her job as a very kind of high-powered personal assistant. And it wasn't so much, when I was thinking about what I wanted Georgie's job to be, it wasn't so much that I wanted her to like definitely be associated with Hollywood or anything like that. It was that I wanted her to have a job that was incredibly variable and incredibly fast-paced. And unpredictable as well, right? So that her job was one where she was always having to pivot, always having to sort of shift gears. She never really had time to stop and think whether she even really liked her job or her life because she was so busy. And that was something that was really on my mind a lot during the last couple of years as I and many of my friends kind of struggled through pandemic work circumstances, and we were all pivoting a lot. We were being asked to work at sort of odd or unusual times or under unusual circumstances. And it was really on my mind, kind of like what that does to us, how that challenges us to think about the lives we're living. And so I wanted Georgie to have that starting point for the book. I wanted her to be thinking about the job she had had and kind of the things that might have kept her from thinking about as a person.
Well, I think it was just like a very cool job for me to just be like the narrative why you don't have this job anymore. But
listen, I read so many articles, many of them anonymous for like, reasons of sort of, I think, legal reasons about like accounts of Hollywood assistants, personal assistants, and what their lives were like. And they are pretty fascinating.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have. So back to you, Erin. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kate and Shannon. Once again, everyone, please do sample all of these amazing titles in our BuzzBooks anthology. Next, we have our final duo, Kylie Scott, author of End of Story, edited by Susan Swinwood and published by Graydon House on February 14th, 2023. Kylie Scott is a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today best-selling, Audi Award-winning author. She has sold over 2 million books and was voted Australian Romance Writer of the Year 4 times by the Australian Romance Readers Association. Her books have been translated into 14 different languages, and she is based in Queensland, Australia. Susan Swinwood joined Harlequin in 1999 and is the editorial director of Graydon House, the commercial fiction imprint she launched in 2016. She has acquired and edited a wide variety of notable and best-selling authors in her career, including Kelly Rimmer, Viola Shipman, Pam Jenoff, Susan Mallory, and Kristen Higgins. Please welcome to the stage Kylie and Susan.
I think I'm right.
Sorry,
Hi.
Of course, just as I did that, I hit the wrong button. Hi, Kylie.
Hey, Susan, how are you going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
At the
Good.
crack of dawn. Good. Wonderful to
too
be
bad.
here. Not too bad. So I'm super happy to be here with Kylie to talk about her amazing book, End of Story. I realize that we're getting close to the time limit, so I want to get to as many questions as I can. So first one I have for you, Kylie, is around the amazing career you've had so far. You've built it as a hybrid and a traditional romance author. I think you've published something like 17 novels. And I'm curious what prompted the shift from the sexy romances that you're known for to the rom-com category in the traditional space with us at Graydon House.
We were just talking about this the other day about how rom-com has really broadened in terms of what it means these days. I mean, humor's always been a pretty strong part of what I do in the contemporaries I write. So it doesn't feel like a huge shift. It feels really wild to be going back to traditional after being indie for the last sort of 5 years exclusively. But no, it's been great. It's just been lovely. I love the story so much.
Has the process changed for you in terms of how you write, given that you've switched to a different category as you were writing Susie and Lars? Was it different from how you approached your romances before?
I didn't. I'd already done sort of a third of the book when my agent started pitching, and so there wasn't really a synopsis. You were awfully trusting when I'm like, yes, I know it all goes somewhere. Just bear with me. I'm pretty sure I've got this. So thank you for that. The next one will be interesting because I actually being a pantser, it's funny. I'll be working up a synopsis for the first time in a long time, so that will be a funny one. But no, this was just lovely. we just kind of followed where the story took us. It was great.
Well, I have to say the proposal that I got, I mean, knowing who you are and what you write, and the story just hooked me right from the very beginning. It's got this light speculative element that I just fell in love with, and I mean, I wasn't wrong. When I got the full manuscript, I was not disappointed. Something else that was different was the kind of hero that you have written in Lars. He's a bit of a cinnamon roll versus, you know, the alphas that I think you're better known for.
He is a little bit softer in some ways. I think with the state of the world for the last 3 years, we are a bit more open. Oh no, I am a bit more open to a little bit more kindness and gentleness. As much as we still love grumpiness, so like we've got to mush all that together in the hero episodes. But he's a little like my partner when we first met. He's quite structured, had very set ideas about the world, and we used to have these long debates clashing on all sorts of different subjects. So he's a little bit like that in my head, whilst looking like the perfect urban Viking.
He's one of my favorite heroes that I've read in a long time. He's very much still the strong silent type, but funny, like so funny.
Mm-hmm.
He and Susie, their repartee just made me laugh all the time. You know, Susie is so sharp, like dagger sharp, and Lars just takes it and then can give it back just as strong. They're a wonderful couple.
He's pretty stoic, yeah.
He is. He's awesome. Just going back to the sort of the light speculative element that I fell in love with in the proposal. So basically, for those who haven't read the book yet or the sample, the protagonists, Susie and Lars, find a divorce decree in the wall of Susie's home that Lars is renovating, and it has their names on it, but dated 10 years in the future. And I'm curious whether, was it difficult writing that type of mystery, for lack of a better word? Did you know all along how the story would end and where it was going to go?
I've always been a huge fan of sort of a bit of weirdness. Halloween is definitely my favorite season. And I don't think I ever told you, I live next door to a cemetery. But, no, it's just
quiet neighbors.
Mm-hmm. And to my great disappointment, nothing has ever happened. I have yet to be haunted. But my family definitely loved to mock me deeply for sort of watching the ghost hunter shows and all that. So without giving it away, I knew the situation would resolve itself, but there's kind of a, readers can take away kind of what they want. There's hints of weirdness here and there, most definitely, but yeah, I knew. I don't know what to say that I won't blow it.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about it without giving too much away. But no, it's just as the reader reading the book all along, I'm wondering, how is this going to end? How is she going to resolve this? How is this going to be wrapped up? And it's so well done and satisfying the way it's done. And I just figured it must have been, and as a pantser, I guess probably you wouldn't know where it's going until you get there.
Pretty much, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what people think, because there's definitely the message I'm trying to send about all of the woo-woo weirdness. So we'll just see. It's going to be cool.
So the woo-woo weirdness, the whimsy, the paranormal, the speculative, we're seeing an awful lot of it in books and TV and movies. And certainly it seems to be a great fit with love stories. Why do you think that is?
That's again the conversation we were having the other day about how the last 3 years have been a heck of a trial. you like me have kind of lost your reading magic. I've only finished like a handful of books in the last 3 years. I really hate it. I keep starting books and I don't know, I love them, and then I just don't go back to them. I hate it. I have to get my reading joy back. I'm just going to keep working at it. But I think we're all due some happiness. I think we're all definitely due some escape, like how we're seeing the rom-coms come back on screen. It's awesome to see paranormal and the witch books and everything going so well. I mean, it's the wonderful world building and the elements of magic and everything. It's so great to have all of that back. Not that it ever really went away.
No, true, but you're right. There seems to be a resurgence, certainly in movie rom-coms. Thinking about the recent Sandra Bullock, and there's a new Julia Roberts and George Clooney rom-com coming out. I'm so excited to see it. I'm so happy that there's more movies and about rom-coms, or rather rom-com movies. So much Marvel out there, and I'm just excited to have something else to watch.
Yeah, I finally watched the trailer to the Julia Roberts one, and isn't it interesting that even in those rom-coms coming out, that they're doing the grumpy sunshine sort of thing too. And Sandra Bullock, man, she's just a queen. She's always going to be a queen.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Just turning to a slightly more serious note, as hilarious as your book is, and as romantic and sexy as it is, it touches on some timely themes that are a little more serious, treated in a very accessible way. One of them is found family, and I'm wondering, what does that theme mean to you, and why was it important to incorporate into your novel?
I think family means so many different things to so many different people, and if the family you're born into isn't necessarily good for you, then how awesome is the internet that we can have friends all the way around the world these days, that we can find people with our interests and who will have our back. And I love found family stories. I really love them, that you find your crowd, and that you can go through life and have all these things in common and have people who will tell you the truth. And I'm really into exploring, I guess, being a romance writer, just love relationships in general. Exploring all those different dynamics. And Susie, the heroine, she's very much in a situation of her confidence has taken a hit because she stayed with the wrong guy who she thought was Prince Charming way past when she should have. And she knows that. She made bad choices, and now she's got to kind of look at what she did and learn from that and build herself back up. And I love how her best friend will just lay it on the line, but whilst still being the soft place for her to fall if she needs it. I love all those sort of dynamics and people working together.
I also love that Cleo got a bit of a romance of her own in the book.
Yes.
Very much so. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Definitely.
I think we're about out of time. So I'm going to turn it back to Erin. Kylie, thank you so much. It was awesome talking with you long distance. And thanks everyone so much for taking part and joining us.
Thank you so much for that, Kylie and Susan. That concludes our presentation tonight. Could all the editors and authors please turn their video and audio back on for a quick goodbye? I'd like to thank all the publishers, editors, and authors for tonight's incredible roster. Everybody was so great, and all the books sound amazing. Keep an eye out. Everyone watching should keep an eye out for a follow-up email with a link to the recording of today's event. And of course, check out our BuzzBooks anthology to sample everything you heard about tonight. Thank you so much to everyone who attended, and good night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Night.